What is up, my ninjas? Shinobi here with another Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls video for you guys, and this video, I'm happy to say, is the final video of the series. We are now on to Demon Hunter, and who better to talk about the Demon Hunter than my good pal, fellow streamer, and YouTuber, Philos, aka Philos. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well.
And we're going to talk obviously about the Demon Hunter here today, and we got a lot of stuff to go through. First off, how did you end up doing in season one, and what did you mainly focus on?
Well, toward the end of season one, I ended up focusing on my hardcore progression,
Yeah.
and I ended up in the top 12 on all brackets for the solo Demon Hunter 2s, 3s, and 4s. So I was actually really satisfied with that. I had not expected to end up doing that well.
Yeah, I saw you climbing up those ladders and in each of them, twos, threes, fours, and I was like, wow, he's really pushing it. It's awesome, and yeah, so that's great, man. And we have, like I said, a bunch of stuff to go through. So let's get into it now. The first thing that I want to go into is the starter build that you have set up here. I saw you messing around with this a little bit on stream, and just kind of like as you're leveling up, some of the skills you want to get, and then at 70, some of the things you want to use at that point. So walk me through the build here a little bit and tell me why it's important to use what you have here.
Okay, so I mean, the build is pretty standard. You got your generator and your spender that you're going to be using, to do damage. You spend and then to generate
Mm-hmm.
hatred. You have, so the evasive fire is good to generate. It's going to give you 7 hatred per attack.
Yeah.
And that's the only generator that does that. And this is available at 42, so it's reasonably early. You're going to get that. It's going to be really good. And
Yeah.
the big thing here with this build, and pretty much any progression build for the Demon Hunter, is the Chakram. This ability you get at level 12, and then you get the Rune Twin Chakram at level 18. So early on, this is just really, really strong ability. It's cheap on hatred, has a large area, lots of damage potential. So that's going to do a lot of work carrying you up as you're progressing. And then, preparation just for the discipline generation. Whenever you're trying to run around doing bounties and stuff, it's nice to have that discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And the companion is just kind of standard filler slot. You can run whichever companion you want. Either, at the lower level you get the bat early on. Eventually you're going to want to run the wolf. And
Mm-hmm.
Spitfire turret, just supplemental damage. It's kind of like an investment. You drop it down, it's going to do additional damage. It's good because, it's cheap. You don't have to actively spend on that, and it's going to do damage for you. It's really good when you're trying to progress with limited amounts of gear.
Mm-hmm.
And then the vault, standard, just mobility there to get you running around. And then the passives, again, standard stuff.
Yeah.
Just some damage passives. Custom engineering is going to be the big one here. Gives you the additional sentries and the duration on those, so that's nice, along with Blood Vengeance for the hatred generation. Resources are kind of an issue early on for the Demon Hunter until you get the right gear to support, stronger builds. Resources are pretty intense, so Blood Vengeance is really nice early on to help you just spam spending.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more because that is always a struggle with the Demon Hunter, especially nowadays, is the resource management. So one of the things you get right when you hit level 70, you kill Malthael, you're going to get the plan for the Reaper's Wraps. Now, tell me how important it is to get that as quick as possible and how important it is even later on in the game.
These braces are really good. They generate up to 30% of your maximum hatred with each health globe. And the main reason that they're really good is because you can target them very easily at the beginning. A lot of crafting plans are random drops, so you can't just go find an arcane bar plan to craft a weapon. You have to wait for RNG to drop one. This is different. You can just kill Malthael on whatever difficulty, it doesn't matter. He has a 100% chance to drop it, and you can craft it, and it's really strong. So that's why I like to emphasize that item for the Demon Hunter early on. And again, it is an in-game item. You are going to be able to utilize this as you progress into higher level greater rifts.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And talking about some more items that we're going to be looking for here as a demon hunter. As you start moving into the later builds that we're about to get into, you're going to start accumulating gear, and some of the items that you want to gamble for, what would be some of the ones that you'd want to try to gamble for as quick as possible, that would be maybe your go-to ones right away?
Well, you want to get your foundation marauder pieces first. So depending on if you get lucky, you might get a couple drops here and there. Maybe you get a shoulder drop early on. You might gamble on the other slots. The focus is going to be to get that marauder 4-piece. With the changes to the marauder, the 4-piece is going to be the point where you kind of jump up in power level. When you get that 4-piece unlocked, enabled, you're going to be way stronger than you were before. So that's going to be the first thing you're going to want to do. And the slots to gamble on would be, either the shoulders, the gloves, and the pants, perhaps. Also, the chest is decent because you have potential for Cinder Coat, but that's kind of like
Yeah.
later on. You really just want to get your foundation marauder pieces first.
Yeah, definitely. True, true. And some items that as far as bounties, you probably want a Ring of Royal Grandeur, right? And then any
Yeah.
other ones?
Definitely you want the Ring of the Royal Grandeur, and also you have the Pride's Fall, which is available from Act 3 bounty bags. So in addition to the Act 1 bounty bags for the ROG, the Ring of the Grandeur, to reduce your set requirement, you can also have, farm some Act 3 bounty bags to possibly get the Pride's Fall helm, which is going to be a really good in-game item.
Yeah, and definitely very helpful in the early stages too. So,
Yeah,
definitely.
again, back to the resources, that resource reduction offered from the Pride's helm is just really, really strong.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move into some of the next builds you have here. And this one right here, was this one a physical one, or it was? Yeah,
Yeah,
physical.
the shooting
This is the
stars is
physical
the
ones with shooting stars. Yeah, so just walk me through this one here. This is something that you would use on the highest tier difficulties, right? Like,
Yeah, this is actually the build that I did use for my personal progression on hardcore when I got the rank 9 on hardcore. So,
mm-hmm.
and it's very similar to the other build and pretty standard for most Demon Hunter builds. They're kind of similar with these abilities. You have your evasive fire for the generation, focus, it's the only one that gives you 7, so it's really good.
Yeah, yeah.
You got the shooting stars for the cluster arrow. With the rocket synergy combined with ballistics, it's just insane damage.
Oh,
The
yeah.
ballistics passive, it doubles the damage of your rockets, so those cluster arrow shooting stars have 600% modifier. It doubles to 1200% damage modifier when you have ballistics. So, and it hits 3 targets, is really good against like blue elites and the Rift Guardian. When you have 3 targets or less, this is going to just do insane amounts of damage.
Yeah. Definitely, that's awesome. And would you make any kind of skill variations here if you were, I don't know, maybe playing in a group, or are there any other ways of maybe doing a build like this?
Yeah, there's definitely a few variations. There are some more for solo. If you have like an Atreyu or a Kreider shot, you might prefer the Frost variation of this, where you just change the cluster arrow shooting stars to Maelstrom. You get that frost damage, cold damage modifiers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's with an Atreyu. If you have a Kreider shot, you have that same change for Maelstrom, but you can also change evasive fire to your frost arrow with the elemental arrow, and that's going to do really well if you have a Kreider shot. And the frost arrow also opens up the option to change the sentry to Spitfire turret. So
Yeah.
that's the Kreider shot variation. That's if you get lucky enough to get a really good Kreider shot.
Yeah, and then the last build we have here, I noticed that we're switching to fire now.
Yeah, that is the group variation. The group build, the loaded for bear is just crazy. When you have anybody in the group grouping the monsters together, like a
Mm-hmm.
Crusader
It's
or
just
a
so much
Monk,
damage. Yeah.
yeah, the damage potential of the grenades is just really off the charts.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming you have more than, 4 or 5 monsters, it's just doing crazy amounts of damage. And also in the group, you're able to drop the polar station for the Spitfire turret, assuming that your group has, your support character with the trigger for your Bane of the Trapped and Call of the Weak. You won't need the polar station in the group. And then you
Mm-hmm.
can also see I switched to smoke screen for the group on the higher tier greater rift. Smoke screen's really nice to help you kind of like stay with the group and obviously not get one shot because
Yeah, true.
that happens a lot for the demon hunter.
Oh yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that actually, getting one shot as a demon hunter. Now you have been playing on hardcore a lot recently, and I noticed in your build setup that you do use a double unity, but I've seen people on normal, or people like to call it softcore. I noticed people on there on the top 10 actually not even using the double unity combo. Can you explain a little bit the theory behind that?
Yeah, I mean that's it's pretty intuitive if you kind of just think about it. Generally, hardcore you don't want to die, so the value of the dual unity is going to be greater. On softcore, you really just want to maximize the damage potential. You're not worried you can die a couple times in a rift, and it's not going to set you back too much. So you really just go full glass cannon, all the damage you can possibly get. And the SOJ is an extremely strong damage ring. So
Yeah.
by not running the SOJ and running the Unity, you are definitely limiting your damage potential. But, it's kind of a safety net if you don't like to die. And again, the big thing is the level of progression that you're at. If you're at the top leaderboard, 50, doing greater rift 50 plus, then the Unity is kind of useless. But
Mm-hmm.
anywhere around 45, less than 50, you can get some value out of damage reduction.
Nice. Now we were talking a little bit about items earlier, and you mentioned the Kreider shot. Now, what would you say besides Kreider shot would be some other go-to weapons at your disposal?
The other nice items, the rare ones that you're kind of looking out for, is going to be the Atreyu and the Calamity, and also potentially the Bariza. It's a two-handed crossbow. Two-handed crossbows are kind of all on the same playing field. They're going to be good. That one has a trigger that you can get some value out of, but generally the Atreyu and the Calamity.
Mhm. Would you say that it's more important? For instance, if you were to find a two-handed crossbow that was ancient, but then you found an Atreyu that wasn't, have you done the comparison there? Would you want to go for the ancient two-hand? I mean,
Oh
obviously
yeah.
it depends on how it rolls, but most of the time, is that how it is?
It almost doesn't really matter how it rolls. Even a poorly rolled ancient is going to outperform a well-rolled non-ancient for the
Yeah.
most part. Like it is possible to get an item so poorly rolled ancient that it could be outperformed, but generally the ancient is going to do significantly better than a non-ancient.
Okay, sweet. Oh, that's awesome then. Okay, because I mean, with the tray, you do have the cold damage there, and
Yeah.
yeah, so you always have to factor that in. So let's move on a little bit here, and let's talk about some of the greater rifting, and some of the things that you've done to help with your how well you've done in the greater rifts. For instance, maybe going against certain rift guardians that you feel you have a tough time with. So maybe give me a little bit of tips on that, or any kind of other tips that you might have for somebody that's wanting to push their greater rifts higher.
Yeah, sure. The big one for a lot of demon hunters starting out when you're trying to progress with the demon hunter, you're going to notice that you get to a point where Jailer and Thunderstorm become problematic. Specifically, Jailer, but also Thunderstorm and Frozen. These affixes become, as I said, problematic for the demon hunter because they have, high damage and it's hard to avoid. That's kind of the situation you're in. And there are things you can do to kind of increase your chances of not dying to these things. And the big one is just staying out of range. The elites and the affixes have a limited amount of range. So if you're far enough away, you won't actually get hit by them. And it's kind of like a fine line to walk on, getting at the right distance to not get hit, but where you're still able to do damage to the monsters. Um,
Yeah. Would you say maybe it's about a screen's distance depending on the map? I mean, it,
yeah,
it does depend, so.
it does. It's kind of like as long as they're just barely off screen. If you can see them, if they're on your screen, if the monsters are on your screen, they're going to be able to hit you.
Mm-hmm.
So you want them just barely off screen, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Awesome. And we talked a little bit before we started this video here about how important it is to try and kind of tip the RNG in your favor a little bit, because RNG can give you a tough time, always fishing for the right riffs, always, like you said, when you get to a certain point of doing these greater riffs, especially on a Demon Hunter, it's really going to come down to getting the right monsters, getting the right Rift Guardians. So how do you usually combat something like that to have a little bit easier time to actually make some progression?
A good technique a lot of people do, and it helps me out a lot, I know personally, is whatever tier that you're trying to progress at, you can kind of collect a nice stack of those level keys. Because when you're grinding greater rifts, you kind of get in the zone and you get focused and you get this mindset, I'm doing greater rifts. You get into that focused zone, and you want at that point to have a nice stack of keys to be able to attempt to do progression. So if you're trying to progress at 45, get 10 or even 20 of these 45 keys. That way you have a nice sample size to where you can, just leave a rift if you get a bad map. And eventually you'll get a decent map. That way you'll be able to progress.
Yeah, I know for me, in my experience, I did the exact same thing. You were actually helping me out. Remember, we were farming some keys, even though we didn't have an optimal group for it. But I didn't really need super high ones because the wizards are a little bit lower on the overall ranking boards there. And I did get a few 44s, and then I just went and did one, and then I ended up clearing one, getting red zombies, getting like everything, getting power pylon with the stone singer, it was like perfect
The stars
RNG.
align.
Yeah, everything lined up, and I completed in like 8 minutes and 50 seconds. And you messaged me like right away, like what the hell? Final topic that I want to talk about a little bit is the new seasonal item for season 2, the new Demon Hunter bow that you guys get. Do you feel like it's going to have any kind of place or even match up against any of the other current top tier items that you've been using?
It's not exceptionally great. It's a decent weapon, mostly in a group. It has a debuff where whenever you attack them with the entangling shot, it's going to increase the damage that the monsters take from all sources. It's a really good damage modifier. Even solo, it can be a good damage modifier. The catch is you have to constantly keep casting your entangling shot and keep it out on monsters, because the effect only lasts for the duration of your entangle. So it's kind of hard to keep it up. The value is questionable, but it has potential for a group situation.
Mm-hmm. All right, and one more thing I want to talk about was that the Demon Hunter has gone through quite a bit of changes. It's more resource management oriented, and kind of instead of just throwing down your sentries and just kind of like hiding behind a wall and going to make a sandwich or something like that. Do you feel like the Demon Hunter is moving in a good direction? Is there anything you'd like to see out of the Demon Hunter in the future that might make it more enjoyable for you and also benefit the Demon Hunter more?
That's a tricky question there, man. I like the changes recently. The gameplay for the Demon Hunter, I think, has been improved as
Mm-hmm.
far as what you have to do to perform well as a Demon Hunter. Last patch, basically all you had to worry about was your sentry placement.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to worry about our cooldown rotation, our generating and spending rotation, our sentry placement, and possibly health globe picking up and managing gem stacks. And there's a lot of things going on for the Demon Hunter in terms of the gameplay. Compared to last patch, it's a lot more interactive, and you got to stay on your toes to perform well.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome. And if you guys have any more questions about the Demon Hunter, definitely check out Philos' Twitch and his YouTube. Would you say Twitch would be an easier place to get a hold of you and ask a
Yeah,
question?
I'm usually more active on Twitch. YouTube is just kind of like a side project for me.
Yeah. Well, all the links will be down below for everything we talked about, the skill calculators, the his channels, and everything like that. And yeah, that'll do it for the entire series. I want to thank you for being a part of this with me here, Philos. It was definitely
Yeah,
great
man.
having you.
Definitely. I do appreciate the opportunity to work together.
Yeah, we talked about always doing something like this, for a long time now. We've known each other for a while, and we never really got around to it, so it was cool.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it. Like I said, guys, that's the end of the series. Share it with your friends. Get a little bit more knowledge in your heads with season 2 coming up, and help you out just a little bit. And hopefully, you guys perform a little bit better, find the items that you need, and at the end of the day, have fun. And that's what it's all about. So good luck with those greater rifts. Good luck with finding that loot, and that'll do it. So my name is Shinobi, and until next time, thanks for watching.